The first time the golden retriever refused to step onto the bridge, Noah Mercer thought it was fear. The second time, he thought it was confusion. By the third time, standing in the cold mountain wind while the dog planted all four paws into the dirt and physically blocked the path, Noah realized something far more unsettling. Atlas had guided him safely through airports, crowded cities, icy sidewalks, and chaotic train stations. Atlas had never refused a command in 4 years. Not once, yet here he was, growling low in his throat, a sound Noah had never heard from him before, as they stood outside a forgotten mining town deep in the mountains of Colorado. And whatever Atlas thought was waiting on the other side of that bridge, he was willing to disobey everything he had ever been trained to do in order to keep Noah away from it. The wind rattled through the canyon below. Somewhere beneath them, water crashed against stone. Atlas stepped backward. Then he pushed his shoulder against Noah's leg, not guiding him forward, guiding him away. And that was the moment Noah made a decision that would uncover a secret buried for nearly 40 years. A secret an entire town had spent decades trying to forget. A secret connected to a missing man, a collapsed mine, and a name Noah had not heard since the darkest day of his military career. The town was called Black Hollow. Most maps no longer listed it. The population sign near the highway claimed 93 residents. Noah suspected there were fewer. He had arrived 3 days earlier looking for silence, after losing most of his vision during an explosion in Afghanistan 12 years earlier. Silence had become something he valued more than almost anything else. The military doctors had saved his life. The rehabilitation specialists had taught him how to live again, but none of them could erase the guilt. The guilt stayed. It followed him into every town, every apartment, every sleepless night, especially when he remembered Staff Sergeant Daniel Rourke. Daniel had been his closest friend, the man standing beside him when the explosion happened, the man who never came home. Noah survived. Daniel didn't. No amount of therapy had ever fully answered the question Noah carried. Why him? Why was he alive when Daniel wasn't? Eventually, he stopped looking for answers. Or at least he tried to. That was why he came to Black Hollow, a forgotten place for a man trying to forget things. The old motel owner had told him about the bridge during check-in. Only thing worth seeing around here? Noah remembered the woman's gravelly voice. Old mining bridge. Been standing since the 1930s. The next morning, he and Atlas had followed a hiking trail leading toward the canyon. Everything seemed normal until they reached the bridge. Atlas froze. Noah issued the command again. Nothing. The dog whined, then backed away. Noah crouched beside him. Atlas's body trembled. Not fear, alertness. The kind of alertness guide dogs displayed when they believed genuine danger existed. Noah eventually turned around. The moment they started walking away, Atlas relaxed. The behavior repeated the next day, and the day after that, each time becoming more intense. By the third attempt, Noah's curiosity outweighed his frustration. That afternoon, he visited the town diner. Black Hollow's diner felt trapped in another decade. Old photographs lined the walls. Mining equipment sat on shelves. The coffee tasted burnt. The conversation stopped when strangers entered. Noah found a booth. Atlas curled beside him. A waitress named June brought coffee. "What brings you here?" she asked. "Vacation," she laughed. "Nobody vacations in Black Hollow, then maybe hiding." That earned a moment of silence. "People come here for that sometimes." Noah hesitated. "You know anything about the bridge?" The room seemed quieter. Not dramatically, just enough to notice. June set down the coffee pot. "Why? My dog won't cross it." A chair scraped somewhere across the room. Noah couldn't see who moved, but he felt a tension shift. June took longer to answer than necessary. "Dogs are strange. Atlas isn't." Another pause. Finally, she sighed. "You should probably leave the bridge alone." That answer only made Noah more interested. "Why?" "Because nothing worth finding is on the other side." Then she walked away. That night, Noah couldn't sleep. Atlas remained unusually restless. Around midnight, the dog climbed onto the floor beside the bed and stayed awake, listening, waiting. The next morning, Noah returned to the diner. Different customers? Same tension. Eventually, an elderly man approached his table. "You asked about the bridge." Noah nodded. The man introduced himself as Walter Finch, 82 years old, former miner. One of the few residents who had lived in Black Hollow his entire life. Walter lowered himself into the booth. "People around here don't like talking about that place." "Why?" "Depends who you ask." "And you?" Walter laughed softly. "I think people get tired of carrying ghosts." Noah frowned. "I don't believe in ghosts." "Neither do I." Walter leaned closer. "But I do believe in secrets." For the next hour, Walter told him about Black Hollow's history. The town existed because of silver. Decades earlier, thousands of workers had poured into the mountains. Then the silver vanished. Businesses closed, families left, the mines shut down. Black Hollow slowly died. Most of the history sounded ordinary, until Walter mentioned a collapse. A disaster nearly 40 years earlier. Several miners became trapped underground. Rescue teams searched for days. It means some people thought he vanished before the collapse. Why would he do that? No one knows. Walter stood. Conversation over. Then he added something unexpected. "The bridge leads toward the old mine entrance." Noah felt Atlas lift his head beneath the table. "The same mine?" Walter nodded. "Same one." That afternoon, Noah returned to the bridge. Atlas resisted immediately. Noah crouched beside him. For several minutes, he simply listened. Wind, water, tree branches, nothing unusual. Then Atlas moved, not backward, forward. The dog stepped toward the edge of the bridge, stopped, turned slightly, then walked several feet along the canyon rim instead. As if indicating another route, Noah followed. The path was rough, narrow, overgrown. Atlas guided him carefully. Nearly 20 minutes later, they reached a section of hillside overlooking the canyon. There, partially hidden beneath brush, Noah discovered something strange. A rusted metal marker. The plaque had fallen face down. He brushed dirt away. Most of the writing had faded, but one line remained readable. "In memory of Elias Grady." Noah's pulse quickened. Why place a memorial here? And why hide it? When he returned to town, he showed the discovery to Walter. The old miner became unusually quiet. "That's not where that plaque used to be." "What do you mean?" "It stood near the mine entrance." "And how did it end up there?" Walter stared toward the mountains. "That's a good question." The next clue arrived unexpectedly. The town library consisted of 2 rooms inside an old municipal building. A volunteer named Martha helped Noah locate newspaper archives. For hours he listened as she read articles aloud. Most covered the mine collapse, the rescue efforts, the funerals, the economic damage. Then Martha stopped. "What?" She read a headline again. "Missing foreman's family demands investigation." Noah sat upright. "Investigation into what?" Martha continued reading. According to the article, Elias Grady's wife claimed evidence suggested her husband disappeared before the collapse. She accused mining executives of hiding information. The investigation never went anywhere. The story vanished within weeks. Noah asked for every article mentioning the family. There weren't many, but one detail stood out. Elias Grady had a son, 12 years old at the time. Name, Owen Grady. No further records existed, as if both mother and son disappeared from history. That night, Noah experienced the first dream he'd had about Daniel Rourke in years. They were back in Afghanistan, back before the explosion, back before everything changed. Daniel kept trying to tell him something, but Noah couldn't hear the words. Only the urgency, only the feeling that something important remained unfinished. He woke before sunrise, Atlas already sitting beside the door, waiting. The dog seemed determined, focused, as though whatever mystery existed was approaching a deadline. The following morning, Noah discovered something nobody had mentioned. The bridge wasn't closed, but it had been repaired repeatedly over the decades. One local contractor confirmed the county spent thousands maintaining a structure leading nowhere important. That made no sense. Why preserve an abandoned bridge serving an abandoned mine? Who benefited? When Noah asked around town, answers became evasive. People changed subjects, ended conversations, avoided eye contact. The resistance itself became evidence. Someone wanted the past buried. The breakthrough came from an old map. Martha located mining surveys from the early 1980s. One diagram revealed a service tunnel not included in modern records. A secondary entrance, separate from the main mine, separate from the collapse, and surprisingly close to the bridge. Noah returned immediately. This time, Atlas practically pulled him along the alternate trail. The dog wasn't avoiding the area. He was guiding Noah toward something specific. Hours later, they found it. The service tunnel, hidden behind vegetation, nearly invisible. The entrance had been sealed decades earlier with steel panels, but part of the barrier had collapsed, allowing access. Cool air drifted outward. Noah felt Atlas's muscles tense, not fear, expectation. Inside, the tunnel stretched into darkness. Noah switched on a flashlight he carried for emergencies. His limited vision allowed him to detect shapes and light under certain conditions, enough to navigate carefully. The tunnel descended deeper into the mountain. Water dripped from overhead rock. Metal supports groaned softly. Then Atlas stopped. The dog nudged something on the ground. Noah knelt. A metal lunchbox, rust-covered, old. Inside were papers. Most had disintegrated. One remained partially intact, a letter. Noah couldn't read it clearly, but he recognized a signature. Elias Grady, the missing foreman. Suddenly, the entire mystery changed. Because dead men don't leave letters in sealed tunnels. Not unless they entered those tunnels willingly. Noah carried the letter back to town. Martha helped decipher the damaged writing. The message wasn't addressed to investigators or mining officials. It was addressed to Owen, his son. The contents stunned everyone. Elias wrote that he had discovered falsified safety reports. The mine was unstable. Executives ignored warnings. Workers remained underground despite serious risks. Elias planned to expose everything. Then came the final line, still visible. If anything happens to me, don't believe what they tell you. Silence filled the library. Martha looked shaken. Noah felt the same. Because the letter suggested the collapse might not have been an accident. That revelation spread quickly through town. And for the first time, someone confronted Noah. A man named Curtis Hale, owner of several properties, grandson of one of the mining executives. Curtis cornered him outside the diner. "You've been asking questions. That's usually how investigations work. You aren't an investigator." "No." Curtis's voice hardened. "Then stop acting like one." Noah smiled slightly. "Or what?" No answer came, but the threat lingered. That night, someone broke into Noah's motel room. Nothing was stolen, nothing damaged, except the copies of the letter. Those disappeared. Whoever entered knew exactly what they wanted. When police arrived, the deputy seemed uncomfortable, almost embarrassed. The report was filed. No follow-up happened. By then, Noah no longer believed this was simply local history. Someone still cared. Enough to intimidate strangers. Enough to erase evidence. The next morning, Walter arrived carrying a cardboard box. "I should have done this years ago." Inside were journals, old notebooks, mining records, personal observations. Walter had kept them hidden for decades. One entry described an argument occurring days before the collapse. Elias Grady versus company leadership. The dispute involved safety violations. Another entry mentioned missing survey data. Then came the bombshell. Walter had written down a name, the engineer who supported Elias. A young surveyor named Daniel Rourke. Noah froze. His hands stopped moving. His heartbeat pounded in his ears. The same name, the same impossible name. Daniel Rourke, his friend, the soldier who died beside him. At first it seemed ridiculous. Coincidence. Had to be. Then Walter explained. The surveyor wasn't the soldier. It was his father. The realization hit like a shockwave. Noah remembered Daniel talking about growing up in Colorado. About a father who died before he was born. About unanswered family questions. Questions he never had time to pursue. Suddenly everything connected. The mystery wasn't random. Somehow Noah had stumbled into the very story Daniel spent years trying to understand. The missing foreman. The collapsed mine. The dead surveyor. Daniel's family history. Noah sat in stunned silence. Atlas rested his head against Noah's knee, as if he already knew. as if he had been leading him toward this truth all along. For the first time in 12 years, Noah cried. Not from grief, from recognition, because the guilt he carried suddenly had somewhere to go, a purpose, a reason. Daniel never learned what happened to his father. Maybe Noah could, maybe that mattered. The investigation intensified. Walter's journals revealed another forgotten location, an administrative storage building outside town. Abandoned since the mine closed, Noah and Walter searched it together. Inside, they discovered boxes of records covered in dust. Most were worthless. Then Walter found a ledger. Payment records. Employee files. Hidden among them sat a folder marked confidential. The contents explained everything, or almost everything. Safety inspectors had indeed documented severe structural risks. Executives suppressed the findings. Production continued. Profits remained protected. Then came an even darker revelation. Several workers planned to testify, including Elias Grady, including Daniel Rourke Sr. Days later, the collapse occurred, officially accidental. Unofficially, the timing felt impossible to ignore. Still, one question remained. Where did Elias go? Why was his body never found? The answer arrived from the most unexpected source. Atlas. Again. 3 days later, Noah returned to the service tunnel. The dog moved with unusual urgency. Deeper. Farther. Past areas previously explored. Then Atlas stopped near a partially collapsed wall. He began scratching, digging. Insistent, Noah called for help. Several townspeople arrived. Together they cleared debris. Behind the wall, they discovered a narrow chamber. Inside stood a metal cabinet, and inside the cabinet sat dozens of documents sealed in waterproof containers. Evidence, decades of evidence, correspondence, reports, photographs, statements, everything Elias had gathered before exposing the company. But there was more. A final letter, dated 1 day before the collapse. The letter explained that Elias feared for his life. He planned to hide the evidence until federal investigators arrived. If anything happened, he hoped someone would eventually find it. Then came the final revelation. Elias never intended to disappear. He became trapped, not by the original collapse, by a secondary cave-in while hiding the records. Search teams never knew where to look. The evidence remained sealed beside him for nearly 40 years. Yet one mystery persisted. Where was Elias? The answer emerged only hours later. Additional excavation uncovered human remains in a neighboring chamber. The missing foreman had finally been found. Black Hollow changed overnight. News spread beyond the mountains. State investigators reopened historical reviews. Journalists arrived. Former residents returned. Families finally received answers. Yet Noah remained focused on one person, Daniel, or rather Daniel's surviving family. Using military contacts and public records, Noah located Daniel's younger sister in Oregon. When she arrived in Black Hollow, he handed her copies of every document, every letter, every discovery. She spent hours reading. Then she looked up. He would have wanted to know. Noah nodded. I know. No. Her voice cracked. You don't understand. She smiled through tears. My brother spent years looking for this story. The silence that followed felt enormous. Because for the first time, Noah realized something. Maybe survival wasn't random. Maybe surviving carried responsibility. Not punishment, not guilt. Responsibility. The bridge mystery, however, still lacked one final answer. Why had Atlas refused to cross? The solution emerged from a retired search and rescue trainer who reviewed the case. Years earlier, minor structural instability had developed beneath portions of the bridge approach. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to create subtle vibrations and sounds imperceptible to most humans. Guide dogs possessed extraordinary sensitivity. Atlas likely detected those signals immediately. Crossing the bridge itself wasn't the problem. The bridge distracted people from the safer route leading toward the service tunnel. Atlas wasn't merely avoiding danger. He was redirecting Noah toward the path containing answers, toward the place where the evidence waited, toward the story Daniel never finished, toward closure. Months later, Black Hollow dedicated a memorial near the canyon, not just for the miners, for the truth, for the families, for the lives altered by silence. Noah attended the ceremony. So did Daniel's sister, Walter, Martha, June, nearly everyone in town. The old plaque honoring Elias Grady was restored, placed where it belonged, visible again, no longer hidden. As speeches ended, Noah stood quietly beside Atlas. Mountain wind drifted through the trees, the same wind that had greeted him when he first arrived. Only now it sounded different, lighter somehow. For years, Noah believed healing meant forgetting Daniel, forgetting the explosion, forgetting the questions. He had been wrong. Healing wasn't forgetting. Healing was carrying the weight differently. Atlas leaned against his leg. The faithful golden retriever who had refused the bridge, the dog who broke his training, the dog who trusted his instincts over commands, the dog who changed everything. Noah reached down and scratched behind Atlas's ears. The crowd slowly dispersed. Voices faded. Cars departed. Soon only mountain silence remained. Peaceful silence, not empty silence. The kind filled with memories that no longer hurt quite so much. Noah thought about Daniel, about Elias, about every person who spent decades waiting for answers. Then he smiled, because somewhere along the way, the mystery had stopped being about a missing foreman, or a forgotten mine, or even a stubborn dog refusing a bridge. It had become something larger, a reminder that truth has a strange way of surviving, sometimes buried beneath rock, sometimes hidden inside old letters, sometimes carried across generations, and sometimes protected by a golden retriever standing on a mountain trail, refusing to take one more step until the person he loved finally noticed what everyone else had missed. As the sun lowered behind the Colorado peaks, Noah and Atlas began walking home. Not toward the bridge, not toward the mine, but toward whatever came next. For the first time in 12 years, Noah no longer felt haunted by the life he had survived. He felt grateful for it. And beside him, tail wagging gently in the mountain breeze, Atlas seemed to know the difference.